The dusty path from Lucy's village stretched behind her like a reminder of all she was leaving behind: poverty, unending farm work, and the voices of her weary parents. They had tried to stop her from dreaming of going to school, not out of wickedness, but out of helplessness. Each time she mentioned school, her mother would heave a heavy sigh that carried the weight of despair. "Lucy, school is not by force. Just stay here with us, farm, and hope a man will come to marry you. We don't have money. We don't have anyone," her mother would say. But Lucy's dream burned too brightly to be quenched by lack. She wanted more than a life of planting yam and harvesting cassava. She wanted to sit in a classroom, to hold a pen like the weapon against ignorance, to rise above the limitations that caged her family for generations. So she left home for the city. A small bag hung on her shoulder, holding nothing but a few clothes, some foodstuff her mother had managed to tuck inside, and her father's silence. But what she really carried was heavier than anything her arms could hold, the burden of a dream she was determined to chase. The city welcomed her, but not with open arms. Its streets were busy, its people rushed, and its prices mocked her empty pockets. She had imagined opportunities waiting at every corner, but reality slapped her in the face. Work was scarce. Survival was harsh. Every night as she lay on the wooden bench in the tiny room she rented with borrowed money, her mother's words echoed in her mind. "Lucy, school is not by force. We don't have money. We don't have anyone." She would close her eyes and fight back the tears, clenching her fist against the emptiness of her stomach and the uncertainty of her future. Then, whispering into the darkness, she made a vow. "No, I must make it." The vow became her anchor, but also her torment, because in the days ahead, life would push her to the edge where her dream could be bought or buried. She decided to visit her uncle, her father's elder brother who lived in the city. He was educated and well-to-do. Lucy had rehearsed the words in her heart 100 times before she stepped into her uncle's house. He was a man who wore fine clothes and carried himself like someone who had made it. If there was anyone who could understand her hunger for education, it had to be him. "Uncle, please," she began quietly, her hands folded in front of her like a child. "I just need help with my school fees. I'll work hard and make you proud." Her uncle listened, but his eyes told a different story. They were not filled with the concern of a father figure or the kindness of family. They lingered too long on her face, on her body, making the hair on her skin stand still. When he finally spoke, the words were like poison. "Lucy," he said, moving closer, "I can help you, but you too must help me." She was confused, but at first she thought it could be working for him or helping with chores at home. But his smile carried something deeper than his words. The school fees she desperately needed had a price tag that had nothing to do with money. Lucy's heart pounded. She had heard stories of girls who compromised, who gave their body in exchange for favors. Was that going to be her story too? Her uncle, her blood, was asking her to climb into his bed before he could open his wallet. Shame burned through her. She rose from the chair so quickly it almost toppled over. "Uncle, I can't do that," she said firmly, yet trembling. But he only shrugged as if to say, "Take it or leave it." She walked out of his house with shaky steps, her pride bruised, her hope dented. The city air felt heavier that evening, pressed down on her like it mocked her dream. She had gone to seek help and returned with nothing but disgust. Later that night in her room, Lucy lay on her back, staring at the ceiling. Hunger gnawed at her belly. Her mother's discouraging words echoed again in her mind. Her uncle's offer replayed itself like a nightmare. For a moment, she wondered if the dream was worth this level of humiliation. Her lips quivered as she whispered into the silence, "Is this how dreams die?" She tossed from one end of her small mat to the other until she couldn't struggle with nature anymore. The city had felt so cold. Lucy had been stretching herself through washing clothes for neighbors, skipping meals, and managing to stay afloat with little drops here and there. But sometimes, all life does is to conspire against you all at once. Her landlord knocked on her door one evening. His voice was thunderous. "Lucy, I'm tired. If you don't pay the balance of your rent by the end of this week, pack your things and leave." His words pierced through her like sharp knives. She tried to plead, but his response was cold. "I don't run a charity organization." As if that wasn't enough, her exam registration deadline was only a few days away. She had saved some money, but it wasn't enough. She did the maths over and over again, and every time the figures refused to balance. No matter how much she tried, she was short of the money. The weight pressed down on her chest. Rent, fees, hunger. It was as though everything was against her dreams. She felt concerned, trapped, and utterly helpless. And then, like a shadow creeping into her thoughts, the memory of her uncle returned. His words, his smirk, his promise of money. She had brushed it off before, disgusted by the thought. But tonight, in the darkness, the option came like a whisper she couldn't shake off. Her chest rose and fell heavily. She buried her face in her palms and tried to pray. But even the words felt heavy on her tongue. Desperation can make even the strongest resolve begin to shake. Finally, through trembling lips, Lucy whispered to herself, "Just once. I'll do it just once." But deep down, she knew she was standing at the edge of a dangerous cliff. That morning felt heavier the most. Lucy had spent the night tossing and turning, battling guilt and desperation. But when dawn broke, she told herself this was it. Today, she would do what she had sworn never to do. She made up her mind to give in to her uncle's bargain. She bathed quietly, dressed slowly, and stood before the mirror for a long moment. Her reflection looked back at her, tired eyes, trembling lips, but a face hardened by struggle. She whispered to herself, almost in defeat. Her legs grew heavier as she stepped out of her small room. Each step towards her uncle's house felt like a betrayal, not just of her body, but of the little girl in her who once dreamed so purely of becoming something greater. And then it happened. Right there on the road, lying as if it had been waiting for her, was a fat bundle of money, neatly wrapped in a rubber band. She froze. Her heart began to hammer against her chest. She looked left. She looked right. The road was silent, with no one in sight. Slowly, she bent down, her fingers trembling as she hovered above the money. 1,000 thoughts chased in her mind at once. Is this God? A miracle at the last minute? Or is this a trap? One of those stories where people turn into yams after picking what doesn't belong to them? Her chest tightened. Sweat trickled down her face, not from the sun, but from fear, confusion, and an overwhelming sense that her life was about to change in one irreversible moment. She picked up the money, held it tightly, and stood in the middle of the road, her mind screaming louder than her racing heart. Lucy stood rooted to the spot, the fat bundle of money in her trembling hand as though it carried fire. Her chest rose and fell rapidly. The road was still empty, silent, almost as if heaven and earth were waiting for her decision. Her thoughts began to clash like soldiers in battle. Lucy swallowed hard. Her fingers tightened around the bundle, her palms sleek with sweat. Tears welled in her eyes. She looked at the money again, then up at the sky, as though expecting it to speak. Her mind was at war, her soul torn between desperation and fear. She could almost hear her parents' voice echoing from the village. "Lucy, school is not by force. Come back home." And then her own voice. Lucy's legs shook as she walked, the bundle of money hidden deep inside her bag. Every step felt like a battle. Part of her wanted to turn left towards her uncle's house, but something stronger pulled her forward. Finally, she stopped in front of the police station, her heart racing as though she was about to surrender herself for a crime. She took a deep breath, pushed the gate open, and walked inside. The moment she told the officers why she had come, their eyes widened in disbelief. One of them shook his head and chuckled. "Now what for you all? Who still dey return money for this country? If na me see am, I no fit bring am here." Another officer leaned back in his chair, studying her with suspicion. "Are you sure you're not playing a game? Who walks in here with this kind of cash?" Lucy's cheeks burned, but she stood her ground. Her voice trembled, yet firm. "It's not my money. Somebody must be crying over this right now. Please just make an announcement. If the owner comes, then it will go back to them." Reluctantly, the officers agreed. A radio announcement was arranged. "A missing sum of money has been found and brought to the police station. If you are the rightful owner, come with proof to claim it." When Lucy walked back to her tiny room that evening, her heart was heavy. She lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling, the whispers of doubt growing louder by the second. Days passed, no one showed up. The bundle of money remained locked away at the station. Lucy's heart sank with each sunrise. Hunger gnawed at her. Her rent deadline loomed. Her exam registration window was almost shut, and the memory of her uncle's offer haunted her like a shadow. She asked herself if she had just lost a miracle. She began to regret her choice, wondering if she had been too naive. Her rent was still unpaid. Her exams were around the corner, and her stomach growled more loudly than ever. That morning, she dragged herself to the police station once again, just to check. She didn't expect much, maybe another round of mockery from the officers, but this time she found them in an unusual stare. A woman stood in the corner, her voice urgent, her eyes restless. She was a wealthy businesswoman, neatly dressed but visibly distressed. For days, she had been searching, tracing her steps, almost losing her mind over the missing money. It wasn't just currency to her. It was meant for a huge business transaction, something she couldn't afford to lose. When Lucy was pointed out as the young girl who had brought the bundle, the woman was surprised. Her eyes widened in disbelief. She studied Lucy from head to toe, the simple clothes, the tired face, the trembling hands. She asked softly, "You found that money, and you returned it?" Lucy nodded, her eyes downcast. The woman was silent for a long moment. Then she reached for Lucy's hand and grabbed it tightly, her own eyes glistening with tears. What happened next felt like a dream. Out of deep gratitude, the woman offered to sponsor Lucy's education, not just to the next level, but to any heights she desired. Lucy could hardly breathe. She looked at the woman, at the officers, and finally at the heavens. Just days ago, she had almost given her body away for school fees. Now, her honesty had opened the door her hustling, her tears, and even her desperation could not unlock. As she walked back to her small room that evening, Lucy's steps were lighter, her heart fuller. She realized that integrity is not just about saying no to the wrong thing. It is about trusting that doing the right thing, even when it hurts, will eventually open the right doors. Her story was no longer about struggle. It was about grace meeting honesty. It was about a dream, once on the brink of death, now given wings to fly. She had learned that integrity can take one further than desperation ever will. And she finally slept, not with worry, but with peace. Her dream was about to meet reality.